The Democrats have lost all of their influence again as they're now trying to push another ridiculous hoax here on the American people. It's welcome back to the CASHLOREN show. I am your host, CASHLOREN, as we will make the liberals cry tears that are saltier than you-know-who's fries. The Democrats are pushing all the wrong hoaxes to try to maintain their power, and this one is one of the most insane they've done so far, is now they're trying to stand in the way of having peace between Ukraine and Russia. As the Democrats have wanted this war with Ukraine for a very long time. In fact, you had over 2 years of Joe Biden doing absolutely nothing but sending money and missiles over to Ukraine and escalating this war against the will of the American voters. And one of the many things that you voted for here in the 2024 presidential election was to bring peace back to Ukraine and Russia and throughout the world through Donald J. Trump. Now, the Democrats, they cannot stand this, and they want to do everything in their power to stop it. Because in the Democrats' mind, Donald Trump is bad. I mean, they've been telling you that for over a decade now, of all the things that Donald Trump was going to do if he was ever to become president. And when that didn't work in 2016, they didn't try to do it again in 2020, and then again in 2024 with all their fake hoaxes, from the impeachment hoaxes to Gene Carroll to the felony hoaxes to the boxes hoaxes, one after another. None of them seem to work. You all still voted for Donald Trump. The Democrats will never be able to let that go, because the Democrats, they have seen themselves as the elites and they have seen themselves as the betters. And because they are so much smarter and because they are so much wiser than you, therefore they can never, ever be wrong. In fact, they've told themselves this entire time that it's Trump who's wrong, right? It's Trump who's bad. That's the exact same thing that they have told to you. And so in order to come to that conclusion, they have to make sure that they sabotage and ruin anything to prove that they are right. And this happened earlier in this week, as Donald Trump has been trying to bring peace not only throughout the world, but he has been trying to bring peace to the Joe Biden disaster into Russia and Ukraine. The Democrats and the mainstream media, they want you to forget that this all happened under Joe Sleepy Biden, when he showed, I think, the great weakness in Afghanistan. We lost 13 service members. I really believe that was the moment when Putin decided to go into Russia, or go into Ukraine, Russia going into Ukraine. And then in addition to that, when Kamala Harris went over to Europe and suggested very strongly that Ukraine should join NATO, see, that was the line for Russia. And that's always been the red line in the sand. And just as Trump had to reiterate last night, there is no path for Ukraine to join NATO. This is a fact then, and this is a fact now. It is also a fact that Ukraine is going to lose land one way or another, and that we are not going to continuously to write blank checks for Ukraine to this war to continue. That Donald Trump wants to bring peace, and so should everybody else. And, it's the funny thing about the Democrat is that they're always so mad and angry. Do you notice this? Like every time they post or they talk, it's always screaming, it's always raging, they're just, hatred is the only thing that unites the Democrat Party. Their hatred for Donald Trump and their hatred for you, the American people, because you did not vote the way that they told you to vote, and that the Democrats, that will never let this go. So because the Democrats, they only look at the end, meaning they must be right, or the Democrats must be born to rule over you, and you dared not to vote the way they told you to vote, right? You did not vote for the stunning and brave Kamala Harris, that then, you must pay the price for not doing what they said. And that price is the Donald Trump. And so they go and they push all the same lies and all the same rhetoric they had, and all that fell during the election. And now he's here, they're trying to go with the economy is going to collapse, right? And the tariffs are going to destroy the United States. And now that Donald Trump, he had promised in 24 hours to end the Russia war, which obviously has not happened. But what they continue to leave out and continue to ignore, and all that happens in between November, when Donald Trump won the election, between then and January 20th, when Donald Trump actually took office, is that Joe Biden's administration again went against the will of the American voters. And they sent as much money as they could over to Russia, into Ukraine to attack Russia. And then they sent long-range missiles and many other things over to Ukraine to start firing into Russia. Even when Joe Biden was president, they would not escalate the war like this. But all of a sudden, when Trump won, see, this was a chance for them to sabotage the Trump administration. Okay, do not doubt me for a single second. We did not have a peaceful transfer of power when Joe Biden lost to when Donald Trump actually took office. It's just like in 2016, is now in 2024, the Democrats decided they're going to try to do as much damage as they could to the process that you, the American people, voted for. I mean, why are they so mad and angry? I mean, what's so wrong for the Democrats about actually bringing peace? Why are they so upset and against securing our borders? Why are the Democrats protecting criminals? Why are the Democrats trying to stop the deportation of illegal aliens who have no right to be here in this country in the first place? But of course, I think all of you already know the answer to this, as the Democrats, through their hatred for you, for the American people, and for Donald Trump, the only thing that they truly care about is power for themselves. And they will lie, they will cheat, they will steal, they will do anything to maintain that power. They proved that all the way through 2023, 2024 alone, and all the hoaxes that they pulled then, just like they're trying to pull now. And the leftists, the mainstream media, whether it's the MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, Political Axios, every single one of them are in the bag for the Democrats. They are all team DNC. And because of them all being part of the same leftist organization, as they're screeching nonstop. And they remember earlier in this week, they're talking about Trump brought in Vladimir Putin into Alaska to start to negotiate these peace deals. And they did all the same lies they always did, how this was all failure and how everything was going to blow up with Donald Trump, right? Trust us again, bro. This time, the corporate media is not lying to you. I mean, Donald Trump, he said he was going to do it in 24 hours, and that hasn't happened. But what they really cannot admit is that they were wrong. And it was really that Joe Biden that failed. I mean, Russia went into Ukraine under Joe Biden. And then every single one of Joe Biden's policies also failed, leading all the way up to Donald Trump coming back. I mean, we were on the verge of World War III. Donald Trump has already stopped 6 wars in under 6 months. But he's also close to stopping Russia today, too. But if he does, this would just be another loss for the mainstream media, another loss for the Democrats, as they have nothing to run on but hatred for Donald Trump and hatred for you, the American people. Donald Trump said last night very, very clearly that Ukraine has no path to being into NATO. And when Kamala Harris, when she went over to Europe, and when she suggested very strongly that could happen, this, I think, was the final straw, but also was never, ever going to happen. And to Putin also having the restraint not to unload his full arsenal into Ukraine. Because make no mistake about this, Ukraine cannot win a land war against Russia. There is not a single path for Ukraine to have victory. The only path for Ukraine is for Russia to just give up. That is not going to happen. They're not going to let NATO come up and put missiles on the border of Russia. It's not going to happen. Now, Putin, for what he is still a leader of Russia, and he still has probably the second largest nuclear arsenal in the world. This leads to Ukraine having to surrender for peace. And like Donald Trump said back in February, Ukraine just simply has no cards. Now, part of this whole entire process that is trying to sabotage and stop peace from happening, all because they don't want to admit that they have been wrong about every single issue. I mean, they were wrong about the economy. They were wrong about tariffs. They were wrong about eggs. They were wrong about crime. They were wrong about the border, and they were wrong about illegal aliens, and they were wrong about women's rights. See, the Democrats cannot stand on a single issue to vote on. So you have this, what I call the three-headed beast from the DC abyss. And these are the three heads that are all working together to try to take away your rights and your freedoms. The first head would be the what we call the deep state, or some will call the blob. And these are all the three-letter alphabet soups of the federal government, who are all set up to have permanent power and rule over you. These are the ones that write most of the laws. Most of the members of Congress just sign and don't even know what's in the bills. And then when you have an effect in your life, it's these same unelected bureaucrats that have tremendous amounts of power to enforce all these rules, whether it be the IRS or it be OSHA or it be LNI or any of the others that go in and try to do against all of your will. It's all these same unelected bureaucrats. The second head would be the Democrats and the Rhino Uniparty, as all of these same exact people do not want to have the actual power. They want to just go into Congress and wear their fancy suits and have their shiny shoes and go in and shake hands with the movers and shakers and make deals. And somehow when they only make a couple $100,000 a year, all of a sudden they are worth tens of millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, without any explanation why. And the one thing that they all are afraid of, the only thing that they're scared of, is that they can lose all of their authority by being voted out of office. See, they really are cowards. And that's why they're more than happy to just push all their power back to the first head, to the deep state. If there's ever any pushback to them, they go, whoa, it's not me. No, I didn't say to do that. No, go talk to the FBI, go talk to the DOJ, right? Go talk to OSHA, go talk to LNI, go talk to any of these bureaucrats and see how well that works out for you. And then the last head is the mainstream media. As every single one of them are just leftist lunatics. There is not a single journalistic bone in their body, not a one. They are more than happy to lie and to use sources, and experts say, to push propaganda that the Democrats and the deep state want to push. I mean, how many times you said, sources say, or experts say, or, we have somebody inside the organization, we have somebody inside the White House, they can never name who it is. Just go after hoax after hoax after they've taken loss after loss after loss. Impeachment hoax number one, impeachment hoax number two, right? Completely fabricated and made up. And they took a huge L on that one. And now they're doing the exact same thing with this now Russia, as they cannot stand that Donald Trump is on the verge of doing peace. So this third head now, this is going with Marco Rubio, who was on the CBS Face the Nation. I want you to listen how she phrases these questions to Marco Rubio as the same way they do the Democrats, where they know they are lying and they really don't care. And the Democrats are more than happy to take that softball and just hit it and then wonder why the corporate media is losing all their influence. But here, Marco Rubio actually pushes back and makes her just look like a fool again. But first, listen to how she phrases this question about Russia and what happened at the start of this weekend, and then now what is transpiring here.
That President Zelensky is going to be bullied into signing something away. That's why you have these European leaders coming as backup tomorrow. Can you?
No, it isn't. That's
reassure
not
them?
Yeah. So there's the narrative they decided to go with. It. They just flat out made up themselves because they can't stand that Donald Trump is going to have another victory and they are going to take another loss. So they go back to not learning any lessons and pushing all the same propaganda that they've always had. That Donald Trump is going to bully Zelensky because they just made up one day that Donald Trump is a bully. They could have phrased it all kinds of ways, like Donald Trump is actually bringing peace and could save hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives by ending this useless war that one never should have happened in the beginning, but two, now that Joe Biden created this mess, that Donald Trump is cleaning it up. But the fake news, the corporate media don't want that to happen, so they try to phrase this in a way and try to lead Marco Rubio down a path that is just not based in reality. And he quickly and correctly points out her nonsense.
Coming us back. That's not true. No, but that's not that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming.
That February Oval Office
they're coming
meeting
here tomorrow
in front of television cameras where President Zelensky.
Again, 100% right. Now she's going back to February, and again, how the mainstream media, what they do is they put a truth and they marry it to lies. Right? Is that this is back in February when Zelensky was sitting in a chair and then Trump was there and JD Vance was negotiating with Zelensky. Now, the part that the mainstream media is not telling you is that they already had a minerals deal in place. And Zelensky was just supposed to come in, make a few comments, sign the deal, have lunch, and then go back to Ukraine. And they're going to work on a ceasefire. And then they're going to work on a long-term peace. But something happened in the background. And Zelensky decided to go there. And he thought that he was going to stand in front of our cameras and not only blow up the deal right in front of Trump and Vance, but he was going to try to manipulate the mainstream media and really the American people into just continuing to give him money and missiles. And Vance correctly called him out on that. And then Zelensky was kicked out of the White House. And I think one of the great moments in that was not only was he immediately kicked out, but they didn't even give him the lunch. They just fed it to the staff and to the press. Oh, that was such a great moment. But this is where she can't let that go, because I was still on egg on the face of the corporate media. And so that's what she's talking about here. And then, Marco Rubio also calling her out on this.
Do you know how many meetings we've had since then?
Oh, no, I know. And I was just up in Alaska watching the one with Vladimir Putin where a red carpet rolled out.
No, but it was Zelensky. We've had more meetings. We've had one meeting with Putin and like a dozen meetings with Zelensky. So, but that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're coming here tomorrow because we've been working with the Europeans. We talked to them last week. There were meetings in the UK over the previous week.
The corporate media just can't stand it. They cannot stand that they were wrong and they lost. They've lost all their influence because they continue to lie. But rather than take a step back, and they go, well, maybe we shouldn't lie to the American voters anymore. I mean, that would be a wild idea, wouldn't it? Instead, they're doubling down on all the things that got them in this point in the first place. Now they've screwed around, and now they're finding out as MSNBC is about to rebrand and about to try something completely different, which is not going to work because it's the same propaganda that is causing them to lose all their influence. Thanks to now, starting with X and Elon Musk taking it over and actually bringing back free speech, but the rise of the independent creators has caused them to lose their influence because now we can show when they're lying versus when you couldn't. Because you only had either the corporate media or you had newspapers. It's eventually the same thing. And they'd all tell the same lies and the same propaganda together. And there was millions and millions of people like you who would think, well, I don't think that way. And I don't believe that is true. But you had no other way to get the information out. So therefore, I think, well, maybe I'm the oddball. Or maybe I'm the one who thinks different than what most people do. With MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, and other times, Washington Post, if they're all writing the same places, they're all doing the same segments, well, maybe I'm the one who is different here. Maybe most of America agrees with them. See, that was the lie. Because what they would do is just like what she did there, is they tell you a half-truth, and then they marry it to a bunch of lies to get you to come to the conclusion you never ever would have came to if you had known the entire truth. But instead, they lied to you over and over and over again. And Marco Rubio very wisely calls her out. And I hope and I pray that the Republicans and others realize that there's no real reason to go on corporate media anymore. I mean, why should they even put up with that? Why should they sit there and listen to the people who hate their guts, like the corporate media, sit there and talk to them like that? They don't need to go on those shows. He could do with Benny Johnson, or he can go on Sean Ryan, or any of these other huge shows, and he can actually have a conversation with American voters in front of millions and millions of views. The sooner that the Republican Party realizes that they don't need corporate media anymore, the sooner that final nail goes in the corporate media's coffin. And even Vladimir Putin and Zelensky have realized this too, as now they are starting to go away from the mainstream media. That has also backfired on them. And you have Zelensky, who had to make a huge concession today, and the mainstream media and the Democrats are trying to play this down, but I can't talk enough about how big of a deal this is. And we're going to talk about that and a whole lot more when we come back after this greedy profit break. This is the CASHLOREN Show.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2025, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage on all 3 of the major networks, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Folks, have you wanted to start a podcast but you just don't know where to begin? Podbeam is your all-in-one solution to host your podcast and distribute it all across the internet. With my code on the affiliate link down below, you will gain also 1 month free to try the Podbeam service. This is really your one-stop solution to hosting your podcast. Record it, you put it up to just a single upload. Then that upload will distribute to all of the main platforms all across the internet, including Apple and Spotify and many, many others. It will then also automatically share your podcast across all major social media, making your job easier so you can spend more time recording the podcasts that you love and less time managing them on the back end. Podbeam is your all-in-one solution for your podcast needs. Click on the link below, the CASHLOREN, and get your 1 free month today. The corporate media has lied to the American voters for such a long time that they have lost all their influence as a result. And this has also led to the rise of the independent creators, just like here on the CASHLOREN Show, where we take our spare bedroom and convert it into a studio. If you're enjoying this content, it will always be free, but you can continue to help support monetarily if you choose to do so. Click on the locals link. It is only $5 a month. This is just a cup of coffee. Not only will you be supporting an independent creator, but you'll be getting lots of free perks in addition to that as well, including exclusive articles and Sunday shows, and thanking you at the end of videos with your name recognition. Take a moment and consider and help support independent creators as we fight fake news. Go to locals right now, hit the support button for just a cup of coffee a month. It'll be worth every single penny, and you're getting lots of extra benefits too. Well, Donald Trump has done something that the Democrats have refused to do for over 3 years now, is that he's bringing now peace back to Ukraine and to Russia. And this has been a hugely historic moment as he has gone and he's brought many of the leaders from Europe and Zelensky and then Putin early in this week back to Washington, D.C. And Donald Trump says it's a big day for the White House. We have never had so many European leaders here at one time. It's a great honor for America. Let's see the results will be President DJT, Donald J. Trump. And he is 100% right here in his mission to move towards peace between Russia and Ukraine. something that Joe Biden caused the invasion of Russia into Ukraine. And now Donald Trump has had to go back and clean up the Democrats' mess. And Donald Trump did one of the things that they absolutely refused to do is he brought Putin and he had a conversation with him. Now, you can hate Putin and that's fine. And Putin can be a dictator and that's fine. Putin, all those things can also be true, but he is also the leader of Russia, and Russia is in Ukraine, and this could lead to the verge of nuclear war as NATO and Europe is just on the other side. The smartest and the best thing to do now is to try to end this conflict. Because who knows if Putin or somebody else pushes that button, who knows what will happen in moments. Probably the thing that we all hope would never ever happen. And this is why it's so important that someone like the strength of Donald J. Trump to go in and bring all these leaders around. See, Putin, when it comes to Russia, when it comes to Ukraine, Putin is the one that's holding all the cards. Okay, Zelensky in Ukraine has absolutely nothing to barter with. They can't win this war. They're completely dependent on other nations to even stay afloat. And then also with Putin, he's staying back and he's not using his full arsenal to defeat Ukraine. Unfortunately. Now we go into Donald Trump where he brings Putin over to Alaska and they have a closed door conversation. They said make great progress. And Marco Rubio is saying, well, they haven't gone all the way to peace yet, and you shouldn't expect that because that was never, ever the point of that in the first place. The point was to move it into that direction, just like Donald J. Trump has done. Now, when he meets with Putin and he starts to get the framework in place, now Zelensky comes in with all the European leaders, and now they're all meeting here in the White House to discuss how to end this war. And even you have the EU Commissioner, Ursula, who is no fan of Donald J. Trump, by the way, praising Trump at the largest trade deal in history, $1.5 trillion just 2 weeks ago. Something else that the corporate media does not want to tell you about, of course. And then even the president of Finland, Alex Stubb, said that something that President Trump is making the Democrats absolutely furious. In the 2 weeks, we've had more than progress in ending this war than we've had in 3.5 years. Facts. We don't see a bunch of Democrats sending over billions of dollars and waving Ukraine flags now. Now we have an actual president who wants to bring peace and stop the bloodshed and stop the ending of our tax dollars going over to sea with no victory in sight. We must put an end to all of this. Now you have the Chancellor of Germany who's still trying to interfere with this peace process here. And I want you to watch how he words this as he's trying to insist that they shouldn't push for peace. Instead, he is trying to call for a ceasefire, which of course can easily be broken and escalate the war. And I have no doubt that he knows this, but this is what he's trying to push to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump correctly points him out.
And let's try to put pressure on Russia, because the credibility of these efforts we are undertaking today are depending on at least a ceasefire from the beginning of the serious negotiations from next step on. So I would like to emphasize this aspect and would like to see a ceasefire from the next meeting, which should be a trilateral meeting wherever it takes place.
Well, we're going to let the president go over and talk to the president.
Right. So this is Donald Trump actually negotiating peace. I mean, why should we settle for a ceasefire when we can go all the way and get peace? If Donald Trump can accomplish something that none of them think they can do, especially like Germany, who has been wrong on just about everything, now that they're pushing this nonsense ceasefire deal, what the heck? And Donald Trump is absolutely right. We're going to take Zelensky and we're going to take Putin. They're going to sit down. They're going to have a conversation. And hopefully we'll find a lot more about that soon. As we had brought up earlier back in February, when Zelensky had the nerve to come into Washington and wear basically wear non-suit, right? Wear his normal t-shirt, more or less, camouflage t-shirt, I think it was back then. Well, now I wish you play this clip earlier. This was Zelensky disrespecting our country, but notice how he wasn't willing to disrespect Donald J. Trump directly. So this is Zelensky. This is early in the morning. This is a hotel away from the White House. And look how Zelensky is dressed here with these other leaders, and then watch how he's dressed later with Donald J. Trump.
Mr. President, thank you very much for your time. I know your time is busy.
A little bit.
What I wanted to do just briefly was to, I've got a meeting with the President, the Vice President, and the National Security Advisor, Secretary of State this morning.
He's wearing a t-shirt. At least that's what it looks like to me. It's a simple black t-shirt. He's in there with the world leaders to talk about peace. At least dress the part. Everybody else is there is wearing suits and wearing uniforms except for him. I mean, just what a disrespectful little scumbag. The dictator Zelensky, who isn't holding elections. I mean, isn't that supposed to be the really bad thing according to the Democrats? And now Donald Trump directly calls him out for this nonsense. Watch how now Zelensky is all of a sudden wearing a suit when he meets with Donald Trump.
Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks good.
I said to the one that attacked you last time. See, now he's I remember that.
Yeah, I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you.
So this is what happens when you have peace through strength. When you show strength, all of a sudden the others, they start to respect that strength. Just like Zelensky has refused to wear a suit for anybody else, but he wears it for Donald J. Trump. As we have promises made and promises kept, and now he is starting to move us towards the peace deal. Where unlike Biden, who in the Democrat side, where they think that the U.S. should always show weakness. I mean, why do the Democrats hate our country so much? Yet they do. They think that we are somehow bad and we are somehow evil, and that the rest of the world needs to be brought up while the United States needs to be brought down to its knees. And they try to push the same policies that haven't worked for an entire generation as showing weakness to the rest of the world. Enough is enough, and this is part of why we voted for Donald J. Trump. And speaking of voting for Donald J. Trump, here is Zelensky again, where he is pushing forward, whereas Donald Trump calls him out for not having elections in Ukraine. And Donald Trump has been playing with that here in the United States as he has the Trump 2028 hats made and the other gear. And the left, of course, are losing their minds because they think that this is real. But Donald Trump makes a very good point in mocking the mainstream media and mocking Zelensky correctly. You know, why are you not having elections? Take a look.
So you say during the war you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now. So you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections? Oh, that's good. I wonder what the fake.
You like this idea?
No.
Speaking of news, I got a question for you. This sounds insane.
See, Zelensky doesn't like that sound, does he? But Trump, of course, again, is white. In the United States, we have had elections during wars, including World War II, both right before and during. But Zelensky has refused to do so, as I suspect very strongly that if he did have elections, there would be no more Zelensky. And because of that, because he is in this power and he thinks now that the United States and everyone else has to just continue to give him money and give him missiles, and that somehow that we owe Ukraine something. We owe them absolutely nothing. The only reason even to be involved in this and to try to bring a peaceful resolution to this war is because of the threat of escalation. If Russia goes into Ukraine and then a war starts with Europe, all of a sudden we're facing World War III again. And that, of course, is not in the United States' best interest. But that is something the Democrats are more than happy to go into risk because that they just made up this lie about Putin hacking our elections. They can't let the even all the way now, 2025, they still can't let go that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016. I mean, to this day, the Democrats still don't want to admit it. They still believe the same Russiagate hoax now that they did back then. And all that same Russia stuff that they pushed for years, they got proven to be a false and to be a lie. They're still believing to this day. And that is really fun. That's really created a lot of their foreign policy in that their push for Ukraine against Russia is, I think, incorrectly, they thought that they could lock Russia down in Ukraine, and eventually create like a quagmire that created in back in Afghanistan that brought on the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union. This was a big piece of it. Now, I think the Democrats from that are trying to push exactly what they did now, right? Is that Russia goes into Ukraine, gets locked into a quagmire. Also, we send billions and billions of dollars in missiles and all this armory, and then all of a sudden, Russia eventually goes bankrupt. But the exact opposite happened. And this is what was very dangerous from this foreign policy. Is one of the things you didn't want to do is you didn't want Russia getting closer with China and then North Korea getting closer with both of them. And that's exactly what happened. As the Democrats failed on this, just like they failed in everything else. And now the mainstream media are trying to cover up for all of it. And when Donald Trump, when he went in and he made this part about the elections, of course, the Democrats are going to absolutely lose their minds again. And you had some of the people online. So this is the Krasteins who fall for every single media hoax. Yet somehow they have either 1 million or close to 1 million followers. This is a breaking. Trump implies that he can cancel U.S. elections, the U.S. at war in 2028. He does this on the world stage as we try to get a dictator to stop invading a sovereign nation. Okay, first, no, you're not. The Democrats escalated this war. The Democrats created this war. The Democrats kicked Putin out of any negotiation. This is not them trying to de-escalate or stop an invasion. This is Donald Trump in our administration who's doing it, not them. And then he calls it sickening, and he has no realization how foolish this is making them look. He pushed the same hoax with like all the crime, just like they did in DC here, where Donald Trump has got sick of it and he sent in the National Guard and he took over the police to bring an end to crime. The thing that the Democrats refuse to do again. And then what the Democrats do, they didn't say, hey, you know what, let's all be on the same side on this. I mean, we all want to be anti-crime, right? Instead, what they did is they tried to go up against Donald Trump and they were actually showing the American people who they really are. Their hatred for Donald Trump, their hatred for the American people, but really their hatred and their bitterness for losing power has caused the Democrats to show you who they actually are. Is now they are backing an actual dictator, Zelensky, who has suspended his elections to stay in power. And when Donald Trump jokingly makes the same point, all of a sudden the Democrats are saying this is a huge, big issue if Donald Trump does it because Donald Trump's bad. But it's not a big deal if Zelensky does it because Zelensky's good. Same thing with crime. Donald Trump, the law and order, brings in the stop crime. Also, the Democrats are protecting criminals and going against law-abiding citizens. They're so stuck in their liberal elitist bubble that they don't realize how far apart they are from the American people in what you actually want, what you voted for, just like Donald Trump is doing. As Donald Trump is restoring our economy through tariffs and bringing manufacturing back to the United States, and then also by his byproduct of exposing the federal government and draining the swamp and releasing all these federal jobs that don't need to exist, that cost you, the taxpayers, millions, sometimes billions of dollars. And then securing the border. Again, the Democrats are on the wrong side. They let in tens of millions of illegal aliens. And now Donald Trump is starting to deport every single last one. The Democrats on the wrong side of another 2080 issue. The Democrats on the wrong side of women's rights, as they continue to want biological males in women's sports and spaces. And then they wonder why their party is collapsing. I think it's really interesting as USAID gets cut off and NGOs get cut off, Then all of a sudden the Democrats can't fundraise anymore. And now their party is sub 20%, and the corporate media cannot influence anyone anymore. And now it's the same thing with Ukraine and with Russia. It's for the last 3.5 years, they've been lying to the American people. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris caused this war, their weakness and their incompetence. Never, ever would have happened under Donald Trump. Vladimir Putin never would have invaded Ukraine if Trump was president in 2020. Never would have happened. Just like he never did for 2016 to 2020. But this is Joe Biden's mess. This is Kamala Harris's mess. And now Donald Trump is cleaning it up. And the Democrats are showing again why they're on the wrong side of another 2080 issue. And with that, we're way over a break. When we come back, we'll cover this and a whole lot more. You're not going to miss it. This is the CASHLOREN Show.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2025, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage on all 3 of the major networks, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Folks, have you wanted to start a podcast but you just don't know where to begin? Podbeam is your all-in-one solution to host your podcast and distribute it all across the internet. With my code on the affiliate link down below, you will gain also 1 month free to try the Podbeam service. This is really your one-stop solution to hosting your podcast. Record it, you put it up to just a single upload. Then that upload will distribute to all of the main platforms all across the internet, including Apple and Spotify and many, many others. It will then also automatically share your podcast across all major social media, making your job easier so you can spend more time recording the podcasts that you love and less time managing them on the back end. Podbeam is your all-in-one solution for your podcast needs. Click on the link below, the CASHLOREN, and get your 1 free month today. The corporate media has lied to the American voters for such a long time that they have lost all their influence as a result. And this has also led to the rise of the independent creators, just like here on the CASHLOREN Show, where we take our spare bedroom and convert it into a studio. If you're enjoying this content, it will always be free, but you can continue to help support monetarily if you choose to do so. Click on the locals link. It is only $5 a month. This is just a cup of coffee. Not only will you be supporting an independent creator, but you'll be getting lots of free perks in addition to that as well, including exclusive articles and Sunday shows, and thanking you at the end of videos with your name recognition. Take a moment and consider and help support independent creators as we fight fake news. Go to locals right now, hit the support button for just a cup of coffee a month. It'll be worth every single penny, and you're getting lots of extra benefits too. Well, the Democrats have found themselves on the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue that the American voters care about. And this is also including the illegal invasion of our country. As the Joe Biden administration and Kamala Harris left our border wide open for 4 years, allowing tens of millions of illegal aliens to import into this country. We have no idea who they are. We have no idea where they've come from. And this has had grave consequences for the American citizens. This story is absolutely tragic, It was completely avoidable if they had just simply enforced our laws. As this has been confirmed now with the Department of Homeland Security and ICE, and this is happening in California. I'm sure you heard about this story. This is where a semi-driver in California, where they decided to make an illegal U-turn, and they just tried to pull around on a highway, right in the middle of the highway. And then another vehicle came in and hit the end of the semi in between the trailer, and 3 people are no longer with us. As more and more details of this very tragic loss of life again happens because the Democrats continue to refuse to enforce our laws. And if they had enforced our laws, those 3 people would still be with us today. As now we find out that this was another criminal alien illegal that was driving a truck here in the United States. And it was California who gave this illegal alien a CDL. This is heartbreaking and never, ever should have happened. They shouldn't have been in our country, and they shouldn't have been driving a 100,000-pound vehicle down the highway. Now, I don't know if they could speak English or not, but the way the laws were before, that they didn't even have to speak English. I mean, what was happening to even give them a driver's license? I mean, this is something that every single, really American, but any driver, but especially in a semi, you should not be making these kind of turns. They're illegal for a very good reason, because of the amount of harm that can happen. You have to take the semi and drive to somewhere where it's safe to turn around, lose you like a parking lot or a truck, a truck stop or something along there, right? Drive a couple miles. It's only a couple minutes. And then 3 more people would be with us today. But people like Gavin Newsom, California, gave them a driver's license and a CDL. And, no one should. I mean, there shouldn't be a single illegal alien in this country, but they shouldn't have a CDL. They should not have a driver's license. I mean, to be in this country illegally should be so miserable for people that they just want to self-deport and leave. And now DHS is speaking up, and they're talking about with ICE enforcement that now they may start going to these truck stops at these wait stations, and that is on the table. So for those that are not CDLs, don't know what I'm talking about, is that they're throughout the highways, you've probably seen that you drive right by, but if you're not a CDL, you probably just wouldn't even pay attention to them. But there are these little pullouts along the highways and freeways, and what they do is they weigh the different axles on these trucks to make sure they're not over whatever weight there is for that highway or road. Most times 105,500 pounds. And then each individual axle, the different tires, can only have so much weight on each tire. So it has to be spread out, equally to each of the tires. Well, not equally per tire, but whatever each tire is weighted for. It drives more than it steers, so on. Don't need to get into all that. That's not what's important to this. But what's important to hear is that these stations all throughout, they'll get pulled in. And most of the time, these truck drivers will just drive in, and you drive through really slow. It weighs all your tires, and you get a red light or a green light, and you go. Now, if ICE starts to get involved, they can do the same things. Because I'm willing to bet a lot that a lot of these wait stations have no interest whatsoever in enforcing our laws when it comes to the legal invasion of our country, or enforcing that the truck drivers have to be able to speak English. But now if you have ICE going in there, you have DHS going in and pulling every single one of these trucks in, because they can do it, right? These wait stations, they can pull in every single truck if they want. Sometimes you drive through on the highway and the little wait thing will give you just get a green, you don't have to pull in. Sometimes you get pulled in. But they pull them in, and then they can see, do you have a driver's license? Do you speak English? Are you here legally? This would be one of the most effective ways, I think, especially with how many people have these CDLs that are not American born, can solve a lot of these problems. Because the thing is, trucks can do in a tremendous amount of damage. I I mean, 3 people lost their life, and this wasn't even like a head-on collision. When semis get in accidents, it's very easily for this to lead into a fatality. And when they shouldn't be in the first place, these are 100% avoidable. I mean, the illegal crime should be 0 because none of them should be here in the first place. The loss of life from an illegal should also be 0 because if they enforced our laws, then they wouldn't have had a CDL and they wouldn't have been here. But of course, it's California, who are more than happy, like Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom, to defend these illegal criminal aliens. And this goes on to Washington, D.C. as well, as Gavin Newsom is defending the illegal aliens. And now so was Washington, D.C., as the Democrats continue to show why they're on the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue. And now the new attorney for the District of Columbia, Gianna Pereiro, she announced that after the federal takeover of D.C., over 400 criminals have already been arrested, including predators, illegals, and drug traffickers, making America safe again. And this is absolute nightmare for the Democrats. This interview coming from DC is a good thing because, I'm saying it's better for community to be safer for kids. Stop the violence. You know what I'm saying? Hugs, not slugs. And this has been a huge, problem for the Democrat Party, as they have done this by threefold, by trying to lie about criminal statistics. For one, when they're trying to say that Washington, D.C. is not in the top of the nation for crime, their very own commander of the police department was just suspended for altering criminal statistics. And then as we dig in deeper in the data, we're finding more horrific things about this, including one, that they just flat out were not arresting people. And then 2, when they did get arrested, they would undercharge them intentionally so that these statistics would not be reported to places like the FBI. And so is crime really going down, or are they just not arresting and just not prosecuting people? And they also had special provisions in there. If you were under 18, you basically just get a pass. This is the same thing California was doing. And I'm sure many other places like New York and the rest of this country, where Democrats have control, crime goes up. And they're so insane as they go and they interview these people. And this is one of the leftists who have been brainwashed by this nonsense. This is what he had to say. Yeah, you have young people who rob CVS. And yeah, you have people who go and take down a 7-Eleven. So he's saying, yes, crime is happening, right? But according to them, the answer isn't to pour in the National Guard here. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is to arrest these criminals and prosecute them. But the Democrats instead show this fake virtue by, instead of showing actual compassion for American citizens who are suffering from this crime, they instead show fake compassion to these criminals. And the answer is programs that raise kids up. Again, no, it's not. It is 100% not. And the facts here is this, right? As crime continues to go up in these cities, they get so bad that then the Democrats, they are now altering crime statistics, not arresting and not persecuting to hide this from you. But this is just in 7 days in DC from the National Guard and from Pam Bondi taking over the DC Police Department. Robberies are down 46%. Carjackings down 83%. Car theft down 21%. Violent crime down 22%. Property crime down 6%. And all crimes overall is down 8%. There's this really weird thing that happens. When you arrest criminals and you lock them up in jail, all of a sudden crime goes away. It's amazing. I know it will blow the Democrats away. Of course, they're going to say all the normal things that they do. I think this was Karen Bass, where she said, well, they're targeting brown and black kids. What does she mean by that? Is she saying that there's certain parts of population that are committing more crime? Because police just go where the crime is. They don't care what color your skin is. They care, was there crime committed, yes or no? If there was, then they arrest the criminal and prosecute the criminal. That is what's supposed to happen. See, justice is supposed to be blind. But again, the Democrats make up the same lies they've always made up, is that they then pretend that this is somehow bad for American people to arrest these criminals, and that instead they should do these youth programs for criminals instead of doing what we got to do, lock them up, take them out of society. And then once you stop the bleeding, once you stop the problem, then you can start to go some other solutions. Because the crime prevention is important too. And the best way to do crime prevention is to get the government out of their lives and then to make the nuclear family great again under our Lord Savior, Jesus Christ. I mean, that is the statistics that prove it more than anything else. You look at the most amount of wealth, the most amount of success is not actually with white America. It is within the Asian community. And the one thing the Asian community has more than any other community is that they get married, they stay married, they raise children in a two-parent household, they have their own incomes, they're not dependent on the government, and they push their kids to be successful. See, that's the nuclear family. And then what Karen Bass is trying to say is with, she's targeting brown and black kids, is she doesn't tell you the other half of that formula, is that they've been vastly lied to about the federal government, and they've been subsidized by these federal programs. But these federal programs, they have these hooks in them, like the father can't be in the home. So they break up for a small amount of money the nuclear family. Then imagine what happens. What happens with all single mother homes? Crime goes up, poverty goes up, drugs go up, crime, all of it gets worse. And that's what happens when you remove the father, the strong, toxic masculinity man from the home. You get the predictable results. So yes, lock up the criminals, keep them in prison, they don't commit crimes. And then once that's done, then you can go and you can start getting the government out of these people's lives and start teaching them to get married before you have kids, have stable income, and then have children after marriage, raise the children in a two-parent household, and then teach the children to also go to school, graduate high school, right, have a job, get married, raise their kids in a two-parent household, all under our Lord Savior Jesus Christ. The government is not the solution. The government is the problem. The solution is what has always worked in the United States of America and everywhere else in the world. The nuclear family under Christ. And with that, we're at the top of the hour, and we've been doing something new this last couple weeks. We're going to do it again, and we're going to be going after the show. We're going to be going on to Rumble and to locals only and doing an after show there. If you want to join, feel free to do so. I'll send a link on X and others. We're also going to be on X and not on X, but we're also going to be trying this also on TikTok. If you want to be involved, you can also join in on TikTok on the CASHLOREN Show, and we will have a conversation and see how people set up. We have a lot of stories still in the stacks that we'll cover there and talk with you. And so there's more of it, less of a talking head and more of having a conversation with the viewers. If that sounds interesting to you, do come and join us on Rumble and on TikTok at the CASHLOREN Show. And please consider supporting the show for less than a cup of coffee a month. You can do so just like these other fine patriots have. We'll be back again tomorrow, not at 8 p.m. Eastern. This is the CASHLOREN Show.